Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, with a comic book review video for you. Got 6 books to share my thoughts with on this Easter bank holiday weekend. And because of the Easter bank holiday weekend, I had the chance to do something I don't normally get to do before I make this video, and that was reread my comics. Usually I read them, make the video, and then later on I will read them again. And it was interesting now, given the time before I did this video, that some of my initial thoughts about comic books that I read this week did change a little bit. There were some that I was like, my opinion is not going to change about this book for good or bad. And there were those at the other end of the spectrum where it was like, rereading it again and so soon after, you pick up and get more out of it than you did the first read. So I don't know if anyone out there rereads their comics so soon after, or do they wait until the next issue is out and then read it just before reading the new one again. But that's what I did this week. So let's kick off with the first of our 6 books that I picked up this week. I'm afraid it's Batwoman issue 30. I think it was Reader 1717 who commented on my video from Wednesday when she saw that I was still picking up this book, and while she is as well, and she has the same kind of feelings about this book at the moment as I do, you know, why are we doing this? It is Batwoman. It's a character that I have enjoyed and loved, and I want to support because yes, this writer is terrible. The sooner DC gets, what's his name, Andreyko off this book, the better, because it is killing it. But I want to keep supporting it, because if I drop this book, as so many other people have, how long will a Batwoman title be out there? So I'm kind of trying to do my bit for Batwoman, despite how bad it is. And it's still nowhere near where it should be. And the word I just kept coming out with while I was thinking about this was, everything, especially in this issue, is just too damn convenient. It's like Andreyko has no idea how to do subtle or carefully plotted. It's just what you see on the page is what you get, and there is no embellishment on it at all. From the beginning fight scene with all these kind of Z-list Arkham Asylum inmates that Spider-Wolf has let free as a distraction while he escapes. I mean, who are these people? I mean, you've got someone called the Green Fairy, who is like a bargain basement poison ivy. You have this jellyfish guy, I don't even think he got a name. You have this guy made up of cockroaches called Scatter, and you have this person running around and they have this huge mouth with lots of teeth inside it. All of them easily dispatched by Batwoman using various of her little Batwoman belt gizmos and gadgets, and it's just very, very pedestrian. From Spider-Wolf's escape, but not just before Batwoman can throw a bat tracer on his back and he doesn't notice. And the thing that really annoyed me about this escape was, you know, she just stood there and basically let him go. Despite the fact that you see later on in the issue, she uses this kind of bat claw that appears to wrap all the way round his body. Could she not have just used that to grab his leg and stop him from flying off? it's just those kind of little things that it's like, oh, for God's sake. What else? Grantham, this kind of guy who's after all these painted pictures that seem meaningless. He suddenly shows up out of nowhere just in the nick of time. And then there's the whole Spider-Wolf and Batwoman both deciphering, both at the same time, what these paintings put all together mean, and where the point is, where this supposed treasure is it? I don't even think that's been explained yet. But supposedly it's a kind of X marks the spot deal. It's just so trite and cliched. I mean, there is this 2-page insert of Maggie, which is so clumsily done, where it's there supposedly because she's heard there's something going on in Arkham Asylum. Batwoman's there, so there's a connection there. But really this scene is only inserted so she can be handed, is it a subpoena? She's been served basically, her ex-partner, husband, whatever, is asking for full custody of their daughter. And it's just, it looks ugly there. It is just a means to an end, and the impact of it is completely lost. And I've ranted enough about this book now. Let's move on. Morning Glories, issue 38 from Nick Spencer on Image Comics, continues to just confuse but still somehow delight me as a reader. Just thank God for the Professor Matthew notes from the study hall at the back that kind of pretends to be someone who's trying to work out the story. He's kind of you and me, and giving us little clues and things that we might have missed that are to do with this issue but have connections to past issues. Praise be. How to explain what's going on in this comic? I couldn't possibly tell you in a nutshell because I'm just as lost. But we have Abraham, who has somehow escaped his cell at the Morning Glories Academy and has suddenly appeared in Morocco, Marrakesh. And there's a horrible scene with snakes. I can't abide snakes. They're my kind of one phobia. So those, even pictures of them, just thinking about them now is creeping me out. But yes, there's a whole weird scene which is kind of connected back to some scenes from Ike in previous issues. Gribbs, who was shot at by Ike, has finally come to and is seeking revenge and information from Ike, because we kind of get this idea that there is some sort of link between him and his father Abraham, where Ike knows, even though he doesn't, he knows where his father is, and through kind of a drugged injection he lets this information out, but not before Gribbs can quite brutally give him somewhat of a beating. We also get the return of a character, one that we presumed dead. But was she? Because what Morning Glories does, and this is part of the confusion, is they play around with timelines so much in this book that it's confusing as a reader to know what is happening, that we're being shown from the past, what is being shown from the future, and what is actually happening right now. Still, I just find this such an entertaining book. It's like a very confusing but enjoyable mystery story, very much akin to the TV programme Lost, as I've mentioned before. I would never recommend picking this up as a jumping on point ever. You would really have to go right back to the start, pick up it in trade, or if you're lucky enough, find all the back issues, because you won't stand a chance. Okay, also from Image Comics we have Stray Bullet Killers issue 2 from David Lapham, and this is, well, it was just another great kind of self-contained story that just surprised you at every turn. It's a self-contained story, like I said, called Sweet Jane, but there is very little sweetness going on in this issue. It begins with a story about a girl called Virginia who has disappeared for a year, for half a year, and then she turns up at her Aunt Jane's. She doesn't want to go back home because her mother, as she says in here, is a bitch. And the story's kind of themes that are going through it are kind of like family, death, grieving, and basically how the relationships in your life and the relationships with yourself and how people cope with the grieving mechanisms. It's so honest and, you know, oftentimes brutal. You get these faint glimmers of, you know, hope and light, and then Lapham just breaks it down, smashes it to smithereens, and you have this awful, devastating ending that I'm obviously not going to spoil for you, but it was just a fantastic book. It's one of those where it's like nothing is as it seems. I found it very much like a David Lynch film where you have this surface of normality, everything looks hunky-dory and happy and pleasant and normal, but just scratch under that surface and you find, you know, pain, anger, pain and more pain. Just another wonderful issue from David Lapham, and I can't wait for the next one. So Batman's weekly run on Batman Eternal issue 2 came out this week, and after the kind of huge explosive start from issue 1, which I think from what I hear everyone pretty much liked, we kind of step back a little and take stock of what's just happened, and as kind of like the earlier solicitations for this book said, that this was going to be very much not just about Batman but the huge cast that surround him, and we certainly get a glimpse of the events that happened last year and how it affects so many people within Batman's life. You get a kind of double page splash of, you know, all the kind of various Bat family and Bat connected heroes and their kind of reactions to what they've seen. Now, most of them I can understand why they're there. People obviously like Batgirl, Robin or Red Robin, whatever he's called now, sort of Harper Rose, I kind of see why she's there, but then it's people like Batwoman and Red Hood. I'm not quite sure, are they that close to Gordon? Are they that connected to him that this would be such an impact to them that they would need to get back to Gotham and kind of be there to investigate, I guess, or help out Batman. So that was just a tiny little niggle, but apart from that, this was another incredibly solid issue from Snyder and Tynion. You've got your detective work in there. Like I said, you've got that cast of kind of supporting characters growing. You've got, I'm guessing, a tease to a potential DC character that we already know. The guy who shouldn't have been there in the subway, that kind of makes one of the officers forget. I don't want to say anything just in case, you know, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but there's the skulls in his eyes, if you look up close, the colour green, the way he says that, you know, he knows about evil. I'm kind of heading to this character, and if Snyder and Tynion use him, it's going to be freaking amazing. And I'm a huge fan of the character anyway, so to have it in there as well will be spot on. What else? We have our kind of villain revealed. Was this too soon? When I first read this, I was like, yes, it is. And this is kind of one of the moments when, after I'd reread it, and I thought, actually, no, this wasn't. I mean, it was great the way, you know, we had this shadowy figure. His face was always, you know, in shadow and dark. You couldn't see who it was. And he was talking to the mayor, and we knew he was a dangerous character. We knew he was, you know, a bad man, and he had historic connections to Gotham. Maybe people worked it out a lot sooner than I didn't until the reveal. And, well, is he really going to be the villain that, you know, the end game, as we saw on the very first page of issue 1 of Batman Eternal? Is he going to be the cause of all that? Or is he just another, though bigger, pawn of someone else who's pulling all these strings to ruin Batman's life and everyone else around him? Wow. I am completely hooked on this. I'm so glad I got suckered into it. Amazing. I'm looking forward. I'm so glad this is a weekly event and I don't have to wait another month for another issue. We move on to the penultimate issue that I read this week, and that was The Unwritten Apocalypse, and it was issue 4. This concludes the 3-part War Stories story arc that's going to lead us into the next kind of stage of and further progress to what I presume is going to be an apocalypse. And the team are kind of heroes, are a ragtag mob of characters. They're taking a rest and preparing, as I said, for this next kind of installment, the next arc to come. So we have Richie making out with Dead Miri, the ghost of Dead Miri. Tom and Wilson, they're fighting over what their next move is going to be, and it's kind of like, who is right and who is not particularly wrong, but who's misguided. Wilson, and you get this throughout the story in this issue, is that Wilson has always had this plan to take down Pullman, but he's wanted everyone in their right places. Unfortunately, people don't like to stay put. People don't like to be told what to do and always think they know best. And that's where you kind of get Tom, and you have to go, whose side am I on really here? But Tom obviously takes it upon himself to take down or prepare. He needs to, you know, prepare to bring down Pullman and save the Leviathan, which in turn will save our world. There's quite a sad scene and it was very short but very just heartbreaking, and that was of Paulie Breckner. Those of you who've been reading from the last volume, Paulie Breckner, it was this kind of White Rabbit, Beatrix Potter type character who was human, but Wilson had thrown him into kind of one of these Beatrix Potter type storylines and made him into a rabbit. And all the times we've seen him in the past, he's hated being this rabbit. He's a fantastic character because you have this kind of this white rabbit, this kind of, it's not fluffy white rabbit, but it's kind of a cute rabbit, but it swears like a sailor. And he's always just wanted to get back in human form. But now he kind of misses the rabbit, and it's sad to see. He's almost, he is a broken man. Tommy and Lizzie finally get together after him rescuing her from Hades, and they get it on because it's been a while. And it's then the rest of the book has Tommy going into, you want to say, this kind of dreamlike state, this story, going into a story of sorts. But that's what's so wonderful about the Unwritten, is that the lines are very blurred between your kind of dreams and reality, fiction and fact. And he's off to meet Madame Arouche, who is basically his godmother. Not his godmother, his grandmother, I'm sorry. And there is a deal to be made, and it's either going to contain blood or semen. You can imagine Tommy's kind of, what? I know which one I'm going to take. For those of you who've read that, you will see really how easy a decision it is to make. But he has to give up part of himself for Madame Rouge so she can give him information that will help him defeat Pullman, or at least give him a modicum of an advantage over him. As always, just a joy to read. Mike Carey just making this wonderful story. I know it sounds so weird to say because it's a story, but it's this story like fairy tale, magical kind of world, but kind of keeping its main characters very much firmly in reality. I love this book. It'll be sad to see it go, but I want to see, and I know he'll do it. He'll give us a good, solid conclusion, even if he does kind of leave us kind of like, ooh, which I think he will. And finally, it's Batman issue 30, the final act, part 1 of Savage City. We've moved on from the destruction of Gotham, and we have now where Gotham has ended up, and that is very much a derelict, ruined city that is being ruled by the Riddler. And he's ruling with an iron rod, but he has given them the chance to free themselves, to get Gotham back, and all you have to do is basically pose him a riddle that he cannot answer, and if he can't answer it, Gotham is given back to you. You have Gordon running around being kind of like the resistance, a resistance of one, and he has somehow got a message to the outside world, to the kind of military, the government of America, there's a place here in Gotham that is kind of blind to Riddler's kind of cameras and sentries that you can get into and then eventually, take down Riddler. Unfortunately for Gordon, what comes into Gotham is not quite what he expects, and they aren't really going to do what Gordon wants them to do. But we have the return of Batman. Bruce Wayne wakes up from his, I guess, this kind of coma state that he has been in since the destruction and his kind of near-death kind of escape from all the destruction that was going on. And just in the nick of time, you know, he's there solving Riddler's kind of clues when this kind of band of Gordon and these soldiers get found, and it looks like they're going to, you know, get killed. It's just a really great read. The artwork by Capullo is fantastic. It's cinematic. I do have one issue with this, and it's the whole run together, and that is, and it's to do with the Riddler. We have this as it says, it's kind of 0 year. This happened like, is it 5 years ago? So this is kind of, and it's the start of Batman being Batman. He's not as experienced as we see him now. He's still learning himself, and yet we have Riddler having concocted such an elaborate, extravagant, convoluted, complicated, extremely ambitious scheme, and he's basically pulled it off. Sure, the inevitable is going to be that Batman's going to take him down, but the scope of this is just so huge that where in the kind of stories to come, when this is all over and we, I presume, come back to the present, what do you now do with the Riddler? He has done something so big that anything he does now surely is like a shadow of it. It's not as if he kind of started small and grew into this kind of mastermind villainous character. It's like he knows it already. There's no experience that this needed. He just did it and it worked first time. And I have a bit of a bugbear about that, but it doesn't make this comic book any less of an entertaining read. Though I will say again, and I know we all say it, and we've said it even before the New 52 came around, why would you stay living in Gotham? I mean, again, this is like the early years of Gotham, and yet we know, because before this we've had present day stories, there are people still living in Gotham. What? The fact that your city was overgrown with kind of like green foliage and trees and vines. You had this ruler of the Riddler raining down on you. You were hungry, you were thirsty, you know, people getting killed left, right and centre for trying to escape, and yet you still want to live there. It's crazy. You would never get me living there. Not even to visit, but it's Batman. It's comics. Someone's got to live there. Right, that's it. I'm sorry it was a really long video this week, but there was a lot to talk about, so I'll make this end short and sweet. Thank you for making it to the end. Subscribe, like, comment, do all that good stuff. And I'll do my best to reply to all your comments. Thank you for watching. Have a great Easter bank holiday weekend. Until next week, bye bye.